With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories.
St. Kitts and Nevis hopes to achieve 100% green power by 2035. Mural by Vaughn Anslin helps to transform the JNF pediatric playroom into a fantasy playland. Prime Minister Drew says getting rid of plastics is not about following a trend, but protecting people's health.
St. Kitts and Nevis strengthens governance with recent passage of Integrity in Public Life Amendment Bill. OECS SKIP initiative to boost youth skills and innovation. CDB says China has reaffirmed its support for Bank and Caribbean region. Internationally, Sudan's RSF restricts aid amid famine, relief workers say. Now, the details.
The Caribbean nations can and should embrace energy independence. That continues to be the rallying call amongst OECS and CARICOM member states. The Sustainable Energy for All Global Forum held in Barbados on March 13 and 14 encouraged the member states to take action and make the necessary investments to achieve their renewable energy goals. Following the wrap-up session of the event, Mr. Conris Maynard, chairman of the OECS Council of Energy Ministers and St. Kitts and Nevis's Minister of Energy, expressed the importance of small island states having a seat at the table and having their voices heard as they strive to achieve a sustainable future.
This is an excellent forum, Sustainable Energy for All, because it is an opportunity to bring all the important stakeholders from across the globe in a singular space, in a Caribbean space, to discuss how we can move sustainable energy forward for this region. And by extension, it was particularly important for us because it gave SIDS a special opportunity to have a platform and a seat at the table to discuss very, very critical issues. Importantly, financing and climate justice. How do we, who are disproportionately affected by the effects of climate change, how do we move forward to adapt to make ourselves resilient when we simply do not have the capital outlay that will allow us to level the playing field? And so there needs to be, as we have discussed, some level of justice, climate justice, to ensure that we are not left behind.
Meanwhile, Clement Jomo Williams, General Manager of the St. Kitts Electricity Company SCELEC, participated in a panel discussion called Unlocking Geothermal Potential from Power Generation to Sustainable Development in the Global South. He shared with energy stakeholders St. Kitts and Nevis's quest towards a 100% renewable energy solution by 2035, including solar energy and a game-changing one-grid geothermal plan.
Our targets would be for by 2030 to have 50% of our energy demand to covered by renewable sources. Now, again, remember, our size being only 45 megawatts total demand makes that very possible. So if you do one large utility scale solar farm, one large utility scale wind farm, coupled with the fact that we have the geothermal resource in the island in Nevis, that can take us to 100% very easy. So right now, the focus would be 50% by 2030, to solar PV utility scale. Then right behind that, we would have the geothermal project coming to fruition, taking us over. So it's very possible that by between 2030 and 2035, St. Kitts and Nevis could be one of the first islands in the Caribbean to be run 100% off of renewable energy sources.
The Sustainable Energy for All Global Forum was held under the theme Sustainable Energy for Equity, Security and Prosperity.
Small businesses are the backbone of economies across the Caribbean, and Caribbean Export Development Agency is focused on empowering these businesses through loans, grants, and opportunities to enter new markets. As a regional agency that has been operating for several years, CEDA continues to make a positive impact on small businesses in St. Kitts and Nevis. Dr. Dami Sinanen, Executive Director of Caribbean Exports, confirmed in an interview with WINN FM that companies in the Federation have benefited from regional grant funding over the years.
Well, St. Kitts and Nevis is one of our key beneficiary countries. So we help, as I noted, we help small and medium-sized enterprises in St. Kitts and Nevis. We help them through a number of different things, through capacity building, through business training, through grant funding, through just in order to build their capacity so that they can expand their product offerings and their service offerings, and they can go out and explore new markets. And we've worked with a number of firms in St. Kitts and Nevis. Just yesterday morning, we did a site visit to one of our clients, Miss Anastasia Elliott, Sugar Tongue Organics. She does these wonderful beauty spa products, jewelry, all different types of stuff. And it was really good to see the progress that she's made over the past 5 years with Caribbean export support.
However, while some businesses have successfully utilized the support available, many others are still unaware of the vital role CEDA plays in assisting small enterprises.
You guys have a lot to offer. I mean, some businesses are really, really strong, what we've seen. And they need the support that Caribbean Export provides. So that's why I'm here, just to really try to let all the businesses there know that Caribbean Export Development Agency exists. We have a product offering that can help you. So I encourage you to reach out to us and see how we can work together to assist your businesses grow, expand, and just really drive your competitiveness up. So that's sort of my goal, just being here in St. Kitts.
Dr. Cinnamon was recently in the Federation for the Green Climate Fund Forum, where he highlighted the importance of small businesses considering climate change and its potential impact on their operations.
Yeah, that's the name of the game, Jermaine. I mean, that's the challenge. And that's where we are focused on in this new program that we're running, is to build climate adaptability and resilience for small and medium-sized enterprises. And we have to recognize that, and I go back to the point I made earlier, many of these small and medium-sized enterprises in the Caribbean region, they're focused on survival. And survival means opening the door today, tomorrow, the day after that. And they don't necessarily think about climate change and all of that kind of thing. They're just focused on what's in front of them. Rightly so, absolutely rightly so. But they have to understand that, again, the climate is going to impact them one way or the other. I mean, if you're a fisherman, it's going to impact your catch. Climate change is going to impact your catch. If you are a food beverage manufacturer, crops, your raw materials are going to get more expensive. If there's a hurricane and the hurricane passes through, even a small hurricane, can your business rebound as quick as possible? These are simple changes that businesses can make. So right now, it's a culture shift that we need to have. We need to start at that point. We need to build the understanding of our businesses so that they can start to think about climate change and how it will impact their business. And that's a step, but it's a step that they have to take.
During the pandemic, CEDA launched a campaign to encourage more small businesses to get involved. This initiative enabled them to provide grant funding to several entities within the Federation.
We launched our grant program that time, and we were here really pushing the grant program. And if I remember correctly, that was really the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. We were all wearing masks, and we had to fill out that form and get approval before we could have traveled to St. Kitts and Nevis. So when we came, our goal was really to push our grant program. And I was very happy to say that we got extremely good results from St. Kitts and Nevis. We got, I think, about 8 applications, which was like 3 times more than we usually would get. And I think we were able to give grant funding to 3 firms, if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, I don't have the statistics in front of me. But we were able to give grant funding to 3 firms from St. Kitts and Nevis. So that mission really paid off. Obviously, we can do more. But again, it's about making sure that we're here. We just started a new program. I mean, that was under our old program. We're funded by the European Union. We are under a new program. So we expect in the upcoming 3 years, because it's a 3-year-long program, that we will have new and exciting initiatives to share with the business persons in St. Kitts and Nevis, including more grant funding.
Despite these efforts, CEDA faces challenges ahead, particularly due to the shifting geopolitical landscape, which may impact the work in the near future.
Local artist extraordinaire Vaughn Anslin was given the trust and free will to create a mural at the newly renovated and revitalized Joy Learning Center located in the pediatric ward of the JNF General Hospital, St. Kitts. Simply a playroom for years, the space was transformed within a few weeks and named Joy Learning Center. It was officially opened during a brief but significant ceremony on March 22, 2025. With a paintbrush in hand and a variety of paint color options, Anslin created a welcoming, child-friendly scene birthed by his imagination. Anslin told WINN FM he was happy to accomplish his goal.
Well, to tell you the truth, When I was approached with the idea of doing a mural in the children's wing at the pediatric ward, they didn't have an idea. I think they just told me to paint something. And for most people, that might be a deterrent. But for me, I actually love that because then I get to immerse myself in the creative process and therefore pursue my own vision. So I basically just asked the question, what's the age group that will be in here? You know, both kids and some adults. And that's basically it. The concept, the houses, the smiling animals. I wanted it to be a happy place. And basically, I think I achieved that and add a little bit of educational touch to it with the numbers and the ABC. And you have a place where kids can have fun in and be themselves. I think that was the ultimate goal, and I think I achieved that.
The mural was sponsored by Mr. Ernest Amory, Honorary Consul General of Switzerland, local businessman and philanthropist. Filled with bright colors, pictures, books, and a general feel of the natural environment, the Joy Learning Center is bounded to make children forget that they are in the hospital. The space includes a brand new TV sponsored by Mr. Leon Matthew of Matthew Business Solutions, an air conditioning unit, blinds, new flooring, coloring books, activity books, storybooks, novels for all ages, and educational books focused on science and health. It also has educational toys, stationery, paint sets, and bean bags. The staff of the pediatric wing was instrumental in the transformation of the space, from the clearing to the setting up. The charity initiative aligns with the overall enhancement plan of the Joseph and Franz General Hospital. Studies show that the aesthetics of a hospital or healthcare environment are fundamental to patients' health, well-being, and recovery. Mrs. Diane Prince Drew, the wife of the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Terence Drew, spearheaded the initiative under her foundation, the Joy Project. She was adamant about transforming the playroom into a bright, inviting multi-purpose space that would bring joy, positivity, comfort, and upliftment to all who use it. The newly revitalized Joy Learning Center is the first initiative executed by the Joy Project for the year. The organization is committed to bringing joy and making a meaningful impact in the communities. Plastic pollution threatens the environment, food security, and human health. Attention has been drawn to the accumulation of microplastics in the ocean and how they possibly interfere with the health of organisms and ecosystems. However, there is also a critical concern that microplastics may be in people's food, drinking water, and indoor air, thus impacting human life. In support of the Plastic Waste Reduction Bill 2025, Dr. Terence Drew, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, emphasized that plastics cause many medical issues as they have become a comprehensive part of the environment. While the human body is known to be made up of flesh, bone, and blood, Drew toiled with the idea that plastics could be considered another element that makes up the human body because of its high level of exposure and toxicity.
And these plastics that reside in our bodies cause tremendous issues. One, plastic cause inflammation. Inflammation is responsible for almost any disease. The hallmark of almost any disease is inflammation, be it heart disease, brain disease in terms of stroke, cancers, and other inflammatory diseases such as lupus and rheumatoid arthritis and those type of chronic diseases. A lot of them, the basis of all of them is inflammation. And do you know what plastic causes? Precisely. Plastic causes inflammation. And because plastic causes inflammation, one is now predisposed to have a plethora of diseases, many of which I have just mentioned, and one of them being cancers, Madam Speaker. I am sure that when the studies are completed, the high rate of cancers and chronic diseases that we have in St. Kitts and Nevis, many of them will be attributed to our ingestion of plastics.
Some other key takeaways from Dr. Drew's presentation suggest plastics can cause gut microbiome disruption, which is indirectly linked to obesity, diabetes, and other metabolic diseases. Plastics can affect the brain. It can cause brain fog, dementia, and other types of mental manifestations when the brain is damaged.
So I want people to understand that when we are saying we have to get rid of plastics, it is not because we are following a trend, it's because we care about the health of our people. Each time I see all these plastics that are at the landfill and on the side of the roads, I just think about the health of our people. How much more people are going to come down with cancer? How much more people are going to end up with diabetes? How much more people are going to have increased weight and just don't understand why the weight is increasing? How much more people are going to have hormonal problems and just don't understand why the hormones are all over the place? I'm not saying that plastic is the only cause, but plastic has been shown to be a cause and a fundamental cause. Therefore, it is important, Madam Speaker, that we get rid of plastics. So plastics are causing a serious health epidemic right here in our country, and it has become so deadly that it is time that we get rid of plastics.
Increasingly, microplastics are making their way into the food chain as fish come into regular contact with ocean plastic waste. Hotspot areas, almost like whirlpools in the ocean, where currents have trapped huge amounts of debris, mostly plastics, have been rather unsettling for environmentalists. The most popular of its kind, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, is approximately twice the size of Texas, making it the largest accumulation of plastic waste in the ocean. 5 marine plastic patches exist in the world, with one being formed in the Caribbean. St. Kitts and Nevis have not been spared the global phenomenon of plastic pollution. Rather, if plastic waste isn't controlled in the Federation, it could threaten marine life, tourism development, and the general economy. Painting a real picture of what has become a global challenge, Senator Dr. Joel Clark, Minister of Sustainable Development, the Environment, Climate Change and Constituency Empowerment, explained why people should be more conscious about plastic use and disposal.
The problem continues when we consider the serious challenge of ghost fishing. And this is a very problematic issue. Abandoned fishing gear, which then become ghost fishing material. Abandoned nets, abandoned lines, which trap fish. Fishermen don't want them anymore. Trawlers don't need them anymore. They leave them in the ocean. And these are a critical problem that we're having. And connected to this, these plastics trapped in this oceanic plastic trap slowly disintegrate. And they disintegrate into microplastics. And fish consume them. And we are a fish-eating country. Then we consume the fish with the microplastics, and then we become sick.
The production and consumption of plastic products cause plastic pollution, especially as the demand for plastic products continues to increase over time. How does the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis contribute to the global plastic pollution crisis?
The problem of plastic emissions is most acute in countries where incomes are growing, like us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, where plastic consumption is growing, but waste management systems and infrastructures, as you can see, struggle to effectively deal with increasing consumption. Plastic waste on land can be managed, but for coastal mountainous countries like St. Kitts and Nevis, we have a serious problem, especially with oceanic plastic waste. Our guts are arteries connecting mountainous land-based waste to the ocean. During storms and rain events, plastic makes its way to our oceans using our guts. This means that 80% of the litter on land will end up in our oceans. Floating plastic in the ocean eventually makes it back to somebody's shoreline. And we have plastics washing up on our shoreline that their source is far away, as far as the Atlantic and Pacific. This has very serious consequences for fishing industry, for the tourism industry, and results in heavy cleanup costs that we bear for our coastal communities.
Moreover, the production process for plastics is energy intensive, leading to carbon emissions and contributing to the climate crisis the world faces. Plastic-related trends have raised dire concerns and highlighted the urgent need for sustainable solutions and a change in human behavior to manage plastic waste. The efforts being made to control plastic consumption and reduce waste are considered more than just protecting the planet. They are also protecting lives and livelihoods.
The St. Kitts and Nevis National Assembly passed the Integrity in Public Life Amendment Bill 2025 on March 21, 2025, another step in the government's ongoing efforts to promote good governance and transparency. Attorney General the Honorable Garth Wilkins successfully presented the bill, emphasizing its role in solidifying integrity within the country's public sector.
Integrity in public life is now part of the DNA of our society. Good governance is here to stay.
He also noted that
hundreds of senior civil servants, parliamentarians, ministers, board chairs, and other persons in public life have already filed 2 sets of declarations with the Integrity Commission. Our third declarations are due to be filed by April 30th this year.
Signaling a strong commitment to accountability, the amendment addresses several key areas to enhance the effectiveness and efficiency of the Integrity in Public Life Act. These include aligning the St. Kitts Act and the Nevis Ordinance to streamline declaration processes, clarifying definitions and requirements for public officials' declarations, and granting the Integrity Commission and the Governor-General the discretion to extend filing deadlines in justified cases. Furthermore, the bill revises the classification of public officials subject to declaration requirements, adding directors at a K40 level or above in St. Kitts and removing certain Nevis-based entities from the St. Kitts Commission's oversight.
These amendments, Madam Speaker, are what we call a strategic refinement of the existing legislative framework to strengthen the accountability mechanisms for persons in public life. They enhance clarity, consistency, and the effectiveness of the IPL Act, ensuring that it remains a robust tool in promoting transparency and good governance in St. Christopher and Nevis.
NIA Minister and Opposition Member, the Honourable Eric Evelyn, raised a point regarding the requirement for members of the Nevis Island Administration to file declarations in both St. Kitts and Nevis, questioning the rationale. Attorney General Garth Wilkin responded,
"The decision makers in the Nevis Parliament, the Nevis Island Assembly, as well as in the Nevis Island Administration, could potentially impact the Federation by whatever bills are passed and whatever actions are taken. So the 2 commissions felt that those persons should still be required to file in both commissions because the impact could be at a federal level."
The Attorney General added that the new amendments simplify the filing process, requiring only one form to be prepared and submitted to both commissions. Asset declarations for public officials in the Caribbean are essential for combating corruption, detecting illicit enrichment, and building public trust by promoting transparency and accountability. These systems enhance transparency by requiring officials to disclose financial information, enabling authorities to detect unjust wealth and conflicts of interest. Effective asset declaration systems include mandatory disclosure, regular reporting, verification mechanisms, and sanctions for non-compliance. These systems foster integrity and strengthen democracy by empowering citizens to monitor their government. In regional news, OECS SKIP initiative to boost youth skills and innovation, DBS St. Lucia reports.
The OECS Skills and Innovation Project is hoping to use stakeholder consultations to carve out a strategy that will help develop skills among the youth by building critical thinking and other competencies to foster innovation through the use of cross-cutting approaches in prioritized sectors. According to OECS SKIP Innovation and Entrepreneurship Specialist Toyla Lago, priority transversal skills include skills that employers in the region value the most, such as communication, problem solving, adaptability, teamwork, as well as initiative. She says the purpose of the stakeholder engagement was to provide potential public and private sector collaborators with a comprehensive overview of the project and facilitate dialogue regarding the proposed priority sectors of its beneficiary institutions, the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College and the National Skills Development Center.
So the idea that we want to birth from this is that the institutions, namely Sir Arthur Lewis Community College as well as the National Skills Development Center, will be able to partner with the private sector to address issues of innovation, looking at process innovation, marketing innovations, as well as operations, so that St. Lucia, in the context of the Caribbean, becomes more competitive for business.
Funded by the World Bank Group through the International Development Association and executed through the Ministries of Education in St. Lucia and Grenada and supervised by the OECS Commission, the project is seeking to promote higher quality teaching and learning in post-secondary education. Edith Emmanuel, who is the project manager for the OECS SKIP, says the initiative fosters the development of a regional innovation ecosystem that better prepares current and future students to not only thrive in the ever-changing world of work, but develop creative and sustainable solutions to socio-economic challenges faced within the local context and the wider Caribbean region.
Innovation is central to economic development or sustainable development. If we are to develop St. Lucia over time based on the government's agenda, innovation is very much an asset for any country. And so we seek to not only focus on academia, which is the traditional landscape of things, we are now seeking to really revise or update our education sector by focusing on the innovation aspect. Because we need young people who are creative, who think outside the box, and who can help shape the government's agenda through innovative ideas and strategic planning for the country's development.
The project will also support the acquisition of advanced technical skills in prioritized sectors, including sustainable agro-industry, blue economy, bioeconomy, circular economy, smart and sustainable tourism, renewable and clean energies, health sciences, and creative industries.
The idea that we want to birth from this is that the institutions, namely Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, as well as the National Skills Development Center, will be able to partner with the private sector to address issues of innovation, looking at process innovation, marketing innovations, as well as operations, so that St. Lucia, in the context of the Caribbean, becomes more competitive for business.
The identified sectors will be the focus of new and enhanced curricula designed to facilitate innovation and competitiveness for graduates and the benefiting corporate sector. From the Communications Unit of the Department of Education, Innovation and Vocational Training, I am Chris Sackney reporting.
CDB says China has reaffirmed its support for Bank and Caribbean region. Grenada Broadcasting Network has that story.
Daniel Best, president of the Caribbean Development Bank (CDB), has confirmed China's reaffirmation of unwavering support for both the CDB and the Caribbean region. During the 2025 annual news conference themed Rebirth, Innovate, Transform and Thrive for a Resilient Future, Best, the CDB's 7th president, responded to a question about China's involvement in the Caribbean Development Bank's Special Development Fund.
China is a member of the Caribbean Development Bank, just like any of the 27 other members of the bank. We have 28 members. China's commitment to CDB and to the Caribbean and to Caribbean people remains steadfast. And as a result, China is also eligible for procurement opportunities and have benefited from procurement opportunities that have been extended as a result of financing of the institute.
Best revealed that China intends to make further contributions to the bank's efforts.
And I'm pleased to report that at our pledging that would have occurred at the end of last week for the Special Development Fund, that the contributor for China issued a strong statement of support in the Special Development Fund and in the Caribbean Development Bank, and will be pledging later this year.
Over the past 2 decades, China's influence in the Caribbean and Latin America has surged. With ongoing uncertainties about the role of the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, in the region, China stands poised to expand its presence. Already, the country has significant ties to the Caribbean community. Since 2022, 10 Caribbean nations, Grenada, Cuba, Jamaica, Suriname, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, and the Dominican Republic, have joined China's Belt and Road Initiative. Its plan to connect Asia with Africa and Europe through land and maritime networks, aiming to boost trade, investment, and infrastructure development. Reporting for GBN News, Beverly Telesford.
We now bring you these international reports.
A paramilitary force that is fighting Sudan's army has placed new constraints on aid deliveries to areas where it's seeking to cement its control, humanitarian workers have said, and that includes places where famine is spreading. The war erupted out of a power struggle between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. Over the past 2 years, it has caused what the United Nations calls the world's largest and most devastating humanitarian crisis. About half of Sudan's 50 million citizens suffer from acute hunger. They're mostly in territory held or under threat from the RSF. Relief workers have previously accused RSF fighters of looting aid. They also say the Sudanese army has denied or hindered access to RSF-held areas. Now the situation could be getting worse. Aid workers told Reuters the RSF has begun demanding higher fees and oversight of operational processes like the hiring of local staff and security since late last year. These moves have not been previously reported. In directives issued in December and seen by Reuters, aid groups were required to register with the Sudan Agency for Relief and Humanitarian Operations, which administers aid for the RSF. The aid workers who requested anonymity said failure to register leads to arbitrary delays and travel permits being rejected. But compliance could also lead to expulsion by the army and authorities aligned to it, the workers said.
The war in Sudan is a war on people.
MSF, also known as Doctors Without Borders, told the UN Security Council earlier this month that the demands leave humanitarian groups with an impossible choice, while life-saving aid hangs in the balance.
They are actively compounding their suffering.
Both warring parties deny impeding aid. The paramilitary group's relief agency agreed last month to suspend the directives until April, but aid groups say the restrictions continue. In an interview with Reuters, the agency's head said it was exercising its legal rights and duties, and that army-backed authorities were pressuring international organizations not to deal with the agency. It comes as the RSF tries to form a parallel government in Western Sudan, while it's rapidly losing ground in the capital, Khartoum, where the army was seen taking back control of the presidential palace this week. The tightening of bureaucratic controls is driven partly by the RSF's quest for international legitimacy, but it also offers a way to raise funds for a faction facing military setbacks while still controlling parts of the country, the aid workers said. That includes almost all of the western region of Darfur, where several areas are hit with famine. There, the fear is that hundreds of thousands of people, many of them displaced previously in the conflict, are now at a greater risk of starvation.
American households continue to lose confidence in their financial futures, according to a survey released on Tuesday. The Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index plunged over 7 points in March, more than economists polled by Reuters had expected. It was the fourth straight monthly decline. The report's Expectations Index, which is based on consumers' short-term outlook for income, businesses, and jobs, dropped to its lowest level in 12 years, below a threshold that usually signals a looming recession. Meanwhile, a separate report showed that Americans are starting to curb their spending in response to high prices and a worsening economic outlook. That's according to consumer finance company Synchrony Financial, which issues credit cards in partnership with retailers and merchants and has more than 100 million consumer credit accounts. Analysts said household spending cuts could be a precursor to increasing late credit payments or even loan defaults. An HSBC analyst, speaking with Reuters, said household belt-tightening has weighed on consumer finance stocks, with shares of American Express, Capital One, Synchrony, and Discover down between 15% to 22% over the past month.
A cryptocurrency company is planning to roll out mini power plants to rural villages in Africa. It's in order to bring electricity to remote parts and to mine for Bitcoin. The company's already proven that a similar model works after installing Bitcoin-generating mines to 6 different renewable energy plants in 3 different countries. Well, the project shows the potential benefits of this controversial energy-hungry system that powers Bitcoin. Joe Tidy has been to the remote mine on the Zambezi River to see one project in action.
The roar of the Zambezi River is deafening. But there's another sound on the riverbanks here in northwest Zambia too, the unmistakable whirring of a Bitcoin mine. 24 hours a day, this container full of powerful computers crunches through complex mathematical problems to earn bitcoins as part of the global volunteer mining network.
It's very noisy, but it's a beautiful noise.
Because the truth is, this noise means we're making money.
It's an odd place for a high-tech crypto operation, but it makes sense as the electricity is so cheap here as it comes directly from the site's hydroelectric power plant. Zengamina Hydro has been running for 17 years, but the Bitcoin mine has been a major boost since it was installed in 2023, as it makes use of excess electricity.
We really struggled to make ends meet, and every day we were wasting over 50% of the energy that we could generate, which also meant we're not earning from that. What we lacked was an institutional, a major user of power in the area. And the extra revenue, important to say, has also helped us keep the prices down for what we charge the local people, which is also very important.
A few miles away from the hydro plant, Damien only got power to his barbershop a couple of years ago, but it's been transformational. Bitcoin mining didn't build Zengamina hydro plant, but there's no doubt it's been a win, not just for the energy company and the Bitcoin miners, but also for the local town. However, the plant has received a huge amount of investment and will soon be expanding. They hope to sell any excess energy eventually back to the grid. So Philip and team have got to hit the road and find a new place. As well as searching for sites with excess energy, Gridless is now hoping to start building its own mini-grid energy plants, with its Bitcoin mine as the first major tenant. I'm sure you'll have critics who will worry that the community want the energy, but you'll favour the mining.
It's a really good question, and you're right, we get asked that a lot. The truth is that Bitcoin mining doesn't pay very high prices for electricity. Our economic interest is to sell to the higher paying customer, and that's always going to be the community.
But because of Bitcoin's reputation for energy use and environmental impact, some governments and authorities remain uncomfortable with including it in electrification projects. Setups like Zengamina are a tiny part of the overall mining picture, but also a rare example of a controversial industry creating much more than just digital coins. Joe Tidy, BBC News in Zambia.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were:
St. Kitts and Nevis hopes to achieve 100% green power by 2035. Mural by Vaughn Anslin helps to transform the JNF pediatric playroom into a fantasy playland. Prime Minister Drew says getting rid of plastics is not about following a trend, but protecting people's health.
St. Kitts and Nevis strengthens governance with recent passage of Integrity in Public Life Amendment Bill. OECS SKIP initiative to boost youth skills and innovation. CDB says China has reaffirmed its support for Bank and Caribbean region. Internationally, Sudan's RSF restricts aid amid famine, relief workers say.
Thank you for listening.